Okay, so hello everyone. Um, Welcome to another Twitter Spaces with iExec. I hope you're all well and that your week is off to a good start. It's nice to already see some familiar faces in the listeners list. I see you, John, Iona. Um, so, this space is going to be part 2 of a two-part fireside chat slash podcast where we discuss this year's top trends in Web3. Um, so um, I will introduce myself before we start. I'm Blair, the Community Strategy Manager here at iExec. And I'd like to introduce Nelly, who is going to be our co host for today. She's Head of Adoption at iExec. Um, Her mission over the past decade has been making complex technologies accessible for all. So, her past ventures include being a mentor for the UN run innovation competitions. She's been part of a working group establishing cybersecurity guidelines for the EU. She's even founded her own non-profit for crypto and tech education. So, I really couldn't think of anyone better to help us break down some of these Web3 trends. So, hello, Nelly. Are you there?
Yes, hello. Thank you, Blair, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Happy to be here.
Cool. So, let's jump into it. Web3. Sometimes in Web3, a few months can really feel like literally years. Development is just happening so fast. And that's been even more the case over the past few years. So we've obviously seen a huge acceleration in new use cases for blockchain, hyped projects coming out of nowhere, successes, failures. Um, and even though the market has slowed down slightly recently, and that's putting it lightly, development certainly hasn't calmed and is certainly going strong. So, with that being said, let's discuss some emerging Web3 trends that we've observed so far this year. Um, Now, a lot of the content that we'll talk about today is based off a report from the Paris Blockchain Week Summit. Is there anything you'd like to add before we begin, Nelly?
Well, just remember this is the second part of the trends, so be sure to check out part 1, so our episode 1. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how DeFi cooperations between chains, NFTs, and gaming are shaping Web3. Also, quick disclaimer, this conversation is just for informational purposes. We don't endorse any of the products or services discussed, and we, of course, recommend you to read the full report.
Yeah, thanks for that. The report is very long, and if you want to dive into the details of the 4 trends that we'll be discussing today, I will link that, of course. So, the first topic I want to hear your opinion on is this concept of the CeFi DeFi continuum. Um, so, I think we can all agree that DeFi has been one of, if not the most adopted use case area for all crypto blockchain tech. I remember watching it evolve in 2020. That was DeFi summer, of course. But it was still very niche at that time, and it was still centered around a small group of crypto native individuals. But over the last couple of years, that has changed. Um, Lots of new participants in the space. And during the last discussion, Nelly, you mentioned that exchanges are almost becoming the new banks, which is interesting. But some of the services offered by these more centralized exchanges are still not that decentralized. So, can you talk about the relationship between these kind of centralized finance or CeFi and on the opposing side, DeFi?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, this new interaction can be explained by two factors. So, in the beginning, the crypto market was driven mostly by retail. Then, what happened is that in 2020, institutional investors entered the space. So, they brought new standards for trading, custody, and asset management. And then last year, crypto VCs and hedge funds entered the space. So, what we're seeing here is that big money is bringing new and sophisticated infrastructures. Now, the second factor is that we're seeing DeFi as a continuation of CeFi. How? By educating users towards decentralization. Let me give you an example. I don't know, by offering yield in a more controlled environment, centralized exchanges and digital banks are becoming a gateway towards DeFi.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, so semi decentralized blockchains deployed by exchanges can be an opportunity for the user to experience crypto applications like NFTs or, I don't know, play to earn.
Yeah, that's right. We have seen a huge uptick in new participants. They're coming from traditional finance systems, and they want to experiment with this new way of doing things. So, yeah, as you said, it might offer a kind of a better onboarding. So, what we're seeing now is maybe these two worlds, DeFi and more CeFi, centralized finance, not really being opposed. So, can you talk a little bit more about that evolution? Maybe the positives and the negatives of both sides?
Well, there's always two sides of the story. In this case, the good thing is that a CFI can learn from DeFi, for example, by exploring creative ways to solve old problems like automation of borrowing and lending. And this is really exciting because it could be beneficial for unbanked people because they will be able to access advanced financial products like micro borrowing or lending. Well, that's the good part. Now, on the other hand, we still have some challenges. For example, the level of complexity involving setting up a wallet or securing a seed phrase is still too much for many. Also, another challenge is that DeFi apps, more often than not, are built for desktop and not for mobile, which is slowing the adoption, contrary to, for example, Robinhood, a mobile first app. So, what we're seeing here is that the future development of the space will heavily depend on user experience.
Yeah. I've always agreed that the kind of the onboarding or the accessibility with these decentralized technologies, I mean, even just a crypto wallet, you're really thrown into the deep end in terms of this new type of user experience. I mean, I can't imagine really my parents switching from. I mean, they're okay on the online banking platforms, but to set up a MetaMask wallet, yeah. So maybe this controlled environment, the CeFi that is offering these DeFi-esque services, be it on a centralized exchange or whatever, that can have its positives. Um, so yeah, as the industry expands and evolves, we do witness the launch of many new types of blockchain protocols. And so each one of these, they have their own approach, maybe a new consensus protocol, and they all these new chains, they all have their own applications. So that's even more different systems to learn and even to decide between, right? Imagine you're a
Mhm.
dev, you want to start with blockchain, and you need to decide if you want to go down the Ethereum route or start exploring the ecosystem that surrounds Solana or BSC. I mean, you've got to kind
Yeah.
of choose your path in a way, which brings me to my next trend. And that is the future will be cross chain. Maybe you can talk a little bit about cross chain for us, Nelly.
Yeah, so this trend of everything moving towards a cross-chain ecosystem is because we're seeing things like the rise of layer one chains. Also, the Ethereum market share of smart contracts went from 90% to 50%. An example of the impact of Polygon. Also, now the interaction between chains moved from competition to cooperation. For example, instead of Bitcoin killer or Ethereum killer, we're seeing an agnostic approach where chains can communicate with each other. And this is good because that could allow its chain to focus on specific use cases. And when also something to keep in mind is that this new cooperation between chains will also help to stop working in silos. You know what you were saying about choosing languages,
Hmm.
programming languages depending on the environment we are today. This language fragmentation, we can see it with between Solidity and Rust, for example.
Yeah, I see that figure you gave about the Ethereum market share coming down in terms of smart contracts. That really is something impressive, down from 90% of smart contracts to 50%. Um, yeah, it's impressive, but in my opinion, creating these separate, isolated ecosystems, for me, it's still kind of a barrier to adoption. So, an approach where chains can interoperate with each other a bit better, that's going to help the industry move forward as a whole, as one big ecosystem. So maybe without getting too technical on us, because I know there are new innovations coming out every few weeks, um, what are the best ways to link these separate chains?
Well, in the report and the main event, they talk about mainly two ways. So one is using bridges, and the other is through general passing messages. Okay, why bridges? Because they offer the possibility to convert tokens between two ecosystem. So the idea is to use bridges where multiple validators sign transactions between two chains. So the thing is about this option is that bridges the solution, yeah, but there are also opening new questions and concerns. Remember what happened? We talked about this in the last episode. What happened with the Ronin Bridge in the Axie Infinity game? In this case, 5 out of the 9 validators were compromised. So, another option is to use general message passing as a way to improve interoperability. So, now we're going to get a little bit more technical here. We're going to talk about the ones used by Polkadot, Cosmos, and Chainlink.
Okay.
So, Polkadot is using XCM, which stands for Cross Consensus Messaging. This is a format node protocol which allows interaction with tokens, smart contracts, or runtime models. So, and they can be used for remote transfers, meaning one chain controls an account on a remote chain. Then we have Cosmos IBC, which stands for Inter-Blockchain Communication. This is also a protocol. Well, no, this is a protocol. And then the aim is to be the TCP/IP for blockchains by allowing cross-chain applications, token transfer, or multi-chain smart contracts. And the other one is Chainlink proposing a CCIP, which stands for Cross-Chain Interoperability Protocol. So this time they want to allow smart contracts on any blockchain to receive data packets. And the first use case it was a programmable token bridge, to initiate programmable actions on the destination chain. So what we're seeing here is the future is cross-chain because the trend is towards better collaboration, communication, and interoperability between chains. And for example, at iExec, we know this, and being cross-chain is definitely part of our product roadmap.
Yeah, for sure. Interoperability for iExec is super important. And as you said, it's part of our roadmap. We could talk about cross-chain bridges, multi-chain all day. You can dive super deep into it to look at the advantages and disadvantages. But I'm going to move on to our next trend, which is NFTs. So of course, this has been another hot topic use case for blockchain. The key words here being use case. Of course, many have been happily trading their JPEGs or artwork, let's call it, whether it be kitties, punks, apes, frogs. But beyond that, there is a lot of exploration about going further with this NFT technology. So even at iExec, we recently presented a prototype using NFTs to represent ownership of personal data. And that's going to be combined with confidential computing technology. but it does have the potential to be very powerful, and taking NFTs a bit further than punks, as cool as they are to have as your Twitter profile picture. I mean, I myself even are.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I'm rocking a fake punk right now, so I mean, I'm a wannabe in this case. So, onto this trend, NFTs and their quest for utility. Can you talk a little bit about that, Nelly?
Yeah, so this is definitely one of the most popular topics. So when we talk about NFTs, the main discussion is around utility, interoperability, and user experience. So the concept of utility is still something that is very difficult to define today. Everyone has their own view, but in general, the idea is that utility is the result of the money allocation between two things. One, the perks given to NFT holders, and the second one, the initiatives to increase the brand value of the NFT collections. So when we talk about how to improve utility, we're seeing two trends here. One is merging physical benefits on top of owning digital objects, and the other is collectors being rewarded just for holding their NFTs on top of the anticipated increase of price. Now, when we talk about interoperability in NFTs, is mostly related to the metaverse. Why? Because people want to own an NFT that could be used in different contexts in worlds. So, and the last thing is user experience. So, the main concern here is that it's still tough for new users to be part of the ecosystem. And we shouldn't just focus on wallet creation, but also we should make the users feel secure in the space.
Yeah, for sure. Interoperability is going to be something that will be interesting to watch to evolve, because I mean, the social networks, profile pictures is a great use case, but if you want to go further and have really like assets that have a utility, um, again, they're going to need to have utility in a wider universe than just yeah, one specific game or something like that. So it's we've seen this quest for utility. Big brand names, as you said, have been swooping in, from Adidas to Gucci, which is impressive to see. But what has been any observable impact that we've seen NFTs have within industries? If you have any examples of that, might be interesting to speak about.
Yeah, so I think about NFTs are definitely transforming creative industries. For example, you can use NFTs to help finance or sell your work if you are in the art, music, or film industry. You could use NFTs as a time machine or timestamp to identify and reward early fans. You can use NFTs as an option to better reward fans, beside using normal social media. You can use NFTs to share financial revenue with the artist, or even use NFTs to create a long-term shared revenue model, among all the different stakeholders like artists, producers, songwriters, and so on. But I think something that I really like about the report is, when talking about NFTs, is the quote from Ledger saying that NFTs are the intersection of culture and technology.
Yeah, very cool. I do like the idea of new revenue models, like the automated fees, which are paid every time, like maybe a piece of art is passed from one person to another. Fees can be, due to smart contracts, fees can be paid automatically to the creator each time. I really like that. Um, Nelly, if you could just mute your mic when I'm talking, because I can hear a little bit of echo, or turn your volume down. So, on the topic of blockchain and ownerships of assets, I'm going to move on to the next trend now. So, it's another emerging trend, very recent, but certainly not to be ignored, and that is blockchain gaming. So, we're still very early here, and I am interested about what you can tell us about the current state of the industry. So yeah, if you could introduce for us, Nelly, the next trend, which is blockchain and gaming.
Sure. So what we're seeing here is, gaming is definitely one of the topics that I found most interesting in terms of technology adoption. So what we're seeing now, it's a general feeling from gamers that there's too much emphasis on economics rather than gameplay. Gamers want companies to focus on gameplay first, and just making games that happen to be tokenomics compatible. So this feeling was a response of what happened with Axie Infinity, and people in the Philippines making a living by playing this game. They you play the game, you earn SLP, the in-game token, then you swap SLP for crypto, and then crypto for money or fiat. And what is really interesting and also, to be honest, heartbreaking is that after the pandemic in rural Philippines, there was no way to make money. And at one point, some people were making in weeks the equivalent of a monthly salary in the Philippines.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. I myself, I went into the Axie Infinity Telegram channel at one point, and it was just full of applications for Axie scholarships, which is essentially to be managed by the owner of the NFT and then play the game to earn. It's really crazy to think about. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's cool if they are making a lot of money, but I do have some questions about the ethics on that particular case. But there is no doubt something there, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, I know. For me, the takeaway is like this is a fundamental change in the nature of work. Like play a game to make a living, and also in terms of mass adoption, this is something that we should definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I'd agree the point you made about the importance of play over earn, right? And we've seen lots of early and I would say maybe rushed releases come out, which are games, but they almost just seem like DeFi with extra steps. Um, yeah, so there's another point as well that I've seen almost a pushback from the traditional gamer community regarding integration of crypto and NFT into games. There was one case from a few months ago was Ubisoft. They released their Quartz platform. It was a big announcement video, and yeah, it made heavy reference to NFTs. They ended up subsequently having to remove that video from YouTube and pretend it didn't happen. And that was just after kind of controversy and pushback from their gaming community. And that might come from a long history of, controversy around pay to win or, buyable in game assets. So yeah, what do you think the challenges are? How can they be addressed? Because yeah, as I said, we're still very early, and there's no doubt potential there.
Well, I think what we're seeing now is that NFTs are still challenged by gamers, mainly by two reasons. So, the first one is the perception about NFTs. So, they think that NFTs are not solving an existing problem in games. And also, owning an asset in a centrally controlled game brings very little benefit to existing in-game
Mhm.
marketplace mechanisms, and like they feel like there's also a lack of education and business models around them. So the other reason is that blockchain gaming still struggles to see AAA editors testing NFTs. And why these editors are important is because they have the power to develop a lot of games at the same time, so they can set up interoperability of assets between their games. But there's hope. So, on the other hand, we're also seeing good examples of how to onboard and educate new users. For example, with the example of NBA and Sorare cards, where they have the card like
Yeah.
common, limited, rare, super rare, and unique. So,
Yeah, the kind of use cases or gamification that's very centered around collectibles, I think. But yeah, very early in this, and I think into the next couple of years, we're going to see some huge game changers in blockchain gaming, and it is still yet to find its place. We haven't really seen a or we haven't seen a AAA game, blockchain-based game come out. And I think we can probably meet somewhere in the middle of the traditional gaming and what is essentially like gamified DeFi. Um, so I think we are coming to the end of the Twitter Spaces already. So I'm going to end it here. But one little thing, some of you may have seen that we mentioned a giveaway of RLC tokens. We wanted to try something a bit different from our community. So if you're still here now, we have taken a snapshot of all the listeners, and you'll be in for a chance to win some RLC. So keep an eye out for the announcement within the coming days. I'll hopefully do that tomorrow. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. We hope to do this again really soon. There's so many topics that we can talk about, whether it's for the industry as the whole or more focused on iExec and our roadmap. So before we end, Nelly, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, well, thanks everyone for joining. I hope this was useful, and I hope that after listening to our 2 episodes, you have a better idea of the trends shaping Web3. And if you want to keep the conversation going, please feel free to join our Discord server and see you on Discord. Bye bye.
Yeah, definitely do that. Okay, thanks everyone for listening. Bye.